Wizards of the Coast has just announced an amazing new set of Shockland secret layers. However, they've made one very weird choice with this product.
Magic. I am a wizard! History. I'm an old wizard! The magic historian. My bones hurt.
Greetings! Owners of fine luxury cardboard rectangles, my friends, we are here today for the delightful experience of talking about the new Culture Shock secret layers and also delving into the very weird choice that Wizards of the Coast has made with this product. So let's talk about what Culture Shock is at its heart. First of all, I love the name because it conceptually ties together the name that everybody uses for these lands and the concept behind the secret layer. It's beautiful. So these are called Shocklands, right? The secret layer is called Culture Shock. The idea is that each of the 10 different Shocklands is going to be showcasing a different world in the Magic the Gathering multiverse. So we get to go on a journey to 10 different worlds, taking in a bit of their culture. Hence the name Culture Shock, which I thought is really, really cool. Now, one of the weird parts about the name of these secret layers is the fact that they have Alarin shard names, right? So you've got Bant, Esper, Grixis, Jund, and Naya, which are the 5 Alara shards, but those have essentially just become shorthand. They are a term used to encompass 3 different colors of Magic the Gathering, right? So that's really why they're named after that. These aren't specifically set in the shards. In fact, none of these lands are actually going to be tuned to the world of Alara where these 5 shards are from. So that might be a little bit tricky to wrap your head around at first, but don't let that throw you off because we're going on an awesome journey here. These cards got spoiled in advance over on MTGO, and at the time, I briefly talked about it, but we didn't get to delve into the artwork and the flavor text of the card because those weren't available. So now we have the joy of getting to do that. So let us dive in. We're going to start by talking about the Bant Shard, okay? Hallowed Fountain is the first land we're going to talk about from this particular secret layer. So the Hallowed Fountain is a plains island, and as it enters the battlefield, you may pay 2 life. If you don't, it enters the battlefield tapped. So that's where these lands get the Shockland name, because Shock is a spell in Magic the Gathering that does 2 damage. So the idea is you can put the land into play, let it shock you, and you get access to its mana right away. Or you can just let it come into play tapped, adding to this land's versatility. Now, what makes these truly desirable is the fact that they have 2 basic land types stapled onto the card. So anything that cares about plains or islands, things that let you search the cards up, or cares about you having them in play, will count these Shocklands, which is why these are essentially the next best thing to the original OG dual lands. Wizards of the Coast is never going to make anything as good as those dual lands again, let's be real. But this is the closest you can get. They function really well with fetch lands, so these are a big ticket item. Up until now, you've only been able to get them in Ravnican flavor, because every time we go back to the world of Ravnica, we get the Shocklands. Now we get Shocklands themed to 10 different worlds, and the artwork and flavor text is where that's going to be showcased. So, the Hallowed Fountain, starting with the flavor text, it says 2 statues stand watch over the entrance to Valor's Reach, celebrating its twin founders and its first champions. This is cool because the world of Kylum, this is where this is set, right? On the world of Kylum, that's actually where we met twin planeswalkers, the Kenriths. So it's kind of neat that the people who founded Valor's Reach are also twins. I enjoy that. Now, the idea behind it is we're on the world of Kylum where Valor's Reach is located. Valor's Reach is like a gigantic gladiatorial arena. So this is where competitors come from all over the multiverse to get into these showing off for the crowd style battles. So the flavor text emphasizes this sort of grandiose spectacle statue that is a way of honoring the people who created this in the first place, right? And I imagine this has benefited the world of Kylum considerably as it creates a draw from the multiverse, bringing in all kinds of different talent. But I really enjoy the idea behind these massive statues, partially simply because of the grandiose scale of them. Like, these are massive statues that have to reach hundreds of of feet into the sky. Because if you take a look down at the very, very bottom there, you'll see all these little blobs of color. And those are people. Those are human beings of, I assume, a normal height, which means that even just the water that's flowing up towards the knee level of these statues has to be probably at least 30, 40, maybe 50 feet in the air, with the water sprays that are arching over the twin statues going up to maybe hundreds of feet in the air. And the mist from this would flow out around it. Like, this is a really cool concept. I love that each of these cards is going to give us a nice taste of flavor. So let's move on to the next one. The next one is Breeding Pool. So this is the Forest Island one. And the flavor text says, where Jin-Jitaxis' ingenuity meets Vorinclex's inhumanity. This is super exciting. This is set on the world of New Phyrexia, which used to be Mirrodin before Phyrexian oil completely corrupted the world. This is such a cool concept to me. So we're getting a glimpse into what New Phyrexia looks like in its current day. And you can see what just looks like toxic waste pools, right? Like, if you look at that, that looks absolutely disgusting. It looks like something you would see in like a Dr. Seuss book where he was drawing, oh, this is the pollution and it's flowing out. It's some pretty noxious looking, awful, like kind of tarry, sludgy water that's flowing out into these different pools, and creatures are being birthed from them. What sort of monstrosities are going to be birthed from toxic sludge? Do you know what the answer is? The answer is Phyrexians. It's so cool. Look at how incredibly gross that weird blobby Phyrexian monster is. And do you know what the Phyrexians do, man? They will take failed experiments and feed them to, like, basically, oh, you didn't turn out right, I guess we'll grind you up and feed you to the next batch. That's so intense. It's got this gross, murky kind of vibe to it, and you can tell this is located underground with only the smallest amount of light shining in. And in the background, you can see another hunched forward, gross little figure. So you wonder what's going on with this. That's pretty intense, right? So the third land that we have in the Bant secret lair is Temple Garden. So, Temple Garden is your forest plains, your white-green variation. This one, the flavor text says, Karamitra's worshippers know that one must plant countless seeds to ensure a bountiful harvest. And Karamitra is a god on Theros. You can see this is definitely a shrine, a temple built to Karamitra. You can see essentially a figure of Karamitra located on the top of this old, like, Greek-style marble pillared temple. I love it. The temple itself is pretty impressive. Then you've got the huge Karamitra on the top and a massive wall that is kind of like half circled around it. You've got these trees that are growing up in a very orderly fashion along the path. And that makes perfect sense because white is about instilling order and green is about nature. So having this orderly nature leading up to the temple fits the flavor perfectly. Now, you may have already clued in by this point as to what's kind of weird with these secret lairs, right? Because I just said this is the third land in the secret lair, but there's only 10 Shocklands. And if we have 5 secret lairs and 10 different Shocklands, why would there be 3 Shocklands in the secret lair? You may have first have thought, wait, there's 3 secret lairs. They're going to do 3, 3, and 4. But that's not the case. We actually have 5 secret lairs. And each of those secret lairs has 3 Shocklands in it. So we have a very weird overlap. We're about to move into the Esper secret lair. And the first one from that is, again, the Hallowed Fountain. So this is where it feels weird. Each secret lair has at least like one kind of duplicate overlap going on where we have 15 Shocklands in total. And the 5 extra Shocklands are all allied colored Shocklands. So you're not going to see any of the enemy color Shocklands showing up more than one time. All the allied colors essentially get a double dip and show up at a rate of 2 to 1 compared to the other ones. So we've already seen Hallowed Fountain. We won't waste our time on that again. Next up is Godless Shrine. This is your plains swamp. So if you don't know what I mean when I said enemy colored, white and black are enemy colored. So this there is only one copy of. Now, The godless shrine, the flavor text says, the second son brought nothing but darkness. This is so cool. This is set on the world of Amonkhet, okay? And this is after Nicol Bolas's evil plans have been fulfilled. And I have to say that what Nicol Bolas did on Amonkhet was absolutely amazing. He hijacked the entire plane of existence and twisted their religious ceremonies to his own designs, using the entire plane as essentially a manufacturing, basically to manufacture an army. He hijacked the whole thing. Their religious cycles were basically built around the approach of the second son. And so Nicol Bolas came along, twisted everything around, and it's this amazing story. I'll go on about it forever if I let myself. So let me just tell you that the Amonkhet storyline was absolutely amazing. And you can see in the artwork the Nicol Bolas horns, which were erected like it's this gigantic statue kind of thing that's set up on Amonkhet, and the suns would shine between his horns, right? Like, Nicol Bolas has a massive ego. He completely subverted the plane and then put a monument to himself. But we can see here at this point that it's been decimated, right? One of the horn tips has snapped off. You can see it's pitted in multiple locations with chunks that are missing from it. And even cooler than this is the fact that Nicol Bolas is responsible for the destruction of all the Amonkhet gods. In fact, some of the Amonkhet gods get turned into zombies. Zombified gods is such a cool concept. Anyways, the idea that all the gods have basically been wiped out, right? I mean, maybe Hazaret is still kicking around, but overall, the world's essentially godless now. So Godless Shrine is a perfect fit. And so that flavor text, it doesn't mean that much to you if you don't understand the story, but if you do, it is awesome. All right, let's move on to the next land that we have. This is the third land in the Esper secret layer, and it's Watery Grave, okay? So this is the black-blue one, your island swamp. The flavor text says, ships go missing in the storm-wrecked sea all the time. That's why we don't call it the calm, safe current. And that's why Captain Lannery Storm. That flavor text is awesome. It's this sarcastic sort of, yeah, of course ships go missing in the storm-wrecked sea all the time, dumb. We don't call it the calm, safe current because everybody goes there for hugs and good times. I love that. It sounds like something a salty pirate would say to some, like, newbie. It's like, oh, come on board the ship. You don't know nothing. Of course it's a terrible place to be, you idiot. So this is set on the world of Ixalan, where we have a lot of that pirate ship action going on. This really works as a concept for Watery Grave and is my absolute favorite artwork for Watery Grave. You can see there are a number of shipwrecks, right? There's a ton of them in there. They're stretching all the way into the back, just shadowy figures of them. There's like, how many are there? 1, 2, 3, 4. I can count at least 7 shipwrecks just in this tiny little bit that we see here. And you can see that it's claimed some recent victims, right? Like if you look at the ships in the back, some of them look a little worse for wear. On the upper right hand, you can see the one ship is, the entire bottom of the ship is gone, right? Like it's just a little bit of the hull. Whereas right in the center of the frame, we can see a ship that's basically just sunk. You can see that the ship itself is in pretty much perfect shape. But you've got people. Their bodies are floating there just in the water. They did not manage to make it to the surface in time. And actually, if you look in the upper left-hand corner, you can see what appears to be a shark. So you know that this is like literally a viewpoint as a ship has just sunk. This might actually, oh, wow, horrifically, this might actually be the viewpoint of one of the sailors that was on the ship who's managed to survive a little bit longer than his fellow mates, but is about to succumb to that. We might be looking through the eyes of a dead man the moment before their life ends. What an amazing concept for a piece of artwork. This is really, really cool, I gotta say. So, that ends the Esper one. Now we're gonna move on to Grixis. So Grixis starts out with a blood crypt here. This artwork done by Seb McKinnon. That man is very talented. So the flavor text says, vampires invited to a soiree at Markov Manor are expected to bring a guest or refreshments, or both. I mean, a guest could be refreshments, right? This is set on the world of Innistrad. Markov Manor references the ancestral home of Sorin Markov, right? He got basically turned into a vampire against his will. And the horrific experience ignited his planeswalker spark at the same time. But Markov Manor continued to be a place where vampires would congregate and grow, and you can see that they've got this crazy fountain. Like, contrast that to the fountain we saw on Kylum, a gigantic set of statues dedicated to appreciating the founders of that area. And now you have something similar, but in a far more ghastly vein, right? This is a statue that is celebrating vampiricness, if that's not a word, but whatever, sounds cool. So it's celebrating that aspect, but it's grisly because there's blood just flowing out of multiple mouths, spewing into a gigantic little river of blood, a pond of blood, depending on how you want to look at it. How many people would it take to like fill that? And how fast does it have to flow to stop the coagulation? And you can see that there are a number of like individuals that are crafted as part of this fountain, and a bunch of them have their swords raised, but in the front you have who I presume, I'm assuming it's Edgar Markov with his sword down and coated in blood, man. This is some intense art. It's got that dark vibe, and you've got some vampires that have that feel of nobility just lingering in this area like a normal human would linger by a much more comfortable and not gruesome style fountain. But very, very cool concept. I like this. After that, we've got steam vents. This is really neat. Steam vents is the red-blue one. So this is your island mountain. The flavor text says, despite being abandoned for millennia, the Thran ironworks still occasionally sputter to life. And I love this so much because it mentions the Thran and the old Urza storyline, right? If you haven't checked it out already, I have another channel called Fantasy Geographic where I talk about Magic the Gathering lore, and the Urza storyline is amazing. It's my favorite storyline in all of Magic the Gathering. It features the Thrans, the Phyrexians. It leads to the creation of Karn. Like, a ton of Magic's history is built on following Urza and everything that happened with him. So anything that ties into that automatically gets ranked highly for me. And I like the way that the art is depicted here because it's been millennia. It's been thousands and thousands of years since these Thran ironworks were abandoned, right? And yet, every once in a while, they still just blast out magical power. And I like the way that they're melded with the terrain, where you can see a lot of grass has kind of overgrown them. You've got these like watery pools where it's got the same kind of vibe. I think you see it normally near dams or something like that. But there'll be these things that, like, these massive tunnels that suck water downwards. And if you get trapped in one, it's a nightmare for you. But it looks like they've got a couple of those where water's being drawn down and steam is being forced back up. So I gotta say, this is really, really cool. I don't know if it's my favorite of all of them, but it's definitely right up there. A mention of Dominaria and showing us part of Dominaria is really, really cool to me. So that is what is that? That's the second land in the Grixis Secret Lair. The third one is, again, the amazing looking watery gray, but we've seen that. So we'll move on to the Jund Secret Lair. All right, so the Jund one has Blood Crypt. The second one is Overgrown Tomb. This is set on the world of Fiora. So the flavor text says, Brago's tomb was first erected as a formality. Now it stands as the last memorial to a forgotten fool. And that's from Queen Marchesa. So the idea behind this is from the world of Fiora, and that is where the conspiracy sets were set up. And the idea there is there's all kinds of power struggles and politics going on. And King Brago was a ghost ruler. So having his tomb erected as a formality is an interesting concept, where it's like you have this statue to a king who is dead, but the king's spirit still exists and is ruling over everything. In fact, he ruled for a very long time until Kea came along and put an end to that with her ability to assassinate ghosts. But the artwork is pretty sweet. It's, it is very straightforward. It is literally an overgrown tomb, right? The tomb part is under the statue there. That's where Brago's body would technically be, although I'm not sure if his body was ever actually laid to rest there. But either way, it serves its function as an overgrown tomb in a city-state. It's pretty cool. I like it. It's not the most exciting of all these lands, but it is a nice little view into the world. And for people who know the history behind it, that's pretty neat. Like, if you like Brago, it's pretty cool that this exists. And it's also interesting that Brago was white-blue, but the tomb is green-black, enemy colors of those two colors, which is pretty funky. All right, moving on. We've got Stomping Ground. This is the third of the Shocklands that is located inside of it's the Jund one we're doing right now, right? Yeah, Jund. Okay, cool. I had to make notes to keep this all straight because of the overlap. The weird choice that they made kind of confused me. So, Stomping Ground, this one is set in the world of Tarkir. The flavor text says, Atarka and her subjects congregate in Aegor, the dragon's bowl. It's my duty to keep that bowl full. And that's Surak, the hunt caller. So you can see in the artwork, there's literally a dragon and other little beasts here. You can see the forests have been set alight. You can see there are other dragons flying in the background. Tarkir was heavily focused on a dragon theme. You had two versions of Tarkir, in fact. One version where the dragons had been mostly wiped out, and another timeline where the dragons hadn't been wiped out, and that was due to Sarkin Vol's meddlesome, like, he's, I'm gonna get in there and make some changes. I'm gonna go talk to Ugin's ghost. Anyways, this is a cool concept for a land. It's got a very nice and wild feel to it, right? Some of the ones we've seen are very civilized. The one we just looked at, for example, the tomb that is located in a city, and this is wilds as far as you can see. There is literally nothing man-made. It's got a very primal, very primordial feel to it, and that fits especially for the green-red aspects of the world of Tarkir. So that gets a thumbs up from me. Now, that leaves one Shockland secret layer to look at, and that is the Naya one. So we've already seen Temple Garden. We don't need to spend time on that. We've got Sacred Foundry. Oh, it's unhappy. This is where they make frowns. Maybe I said that because I wasn't a huge fan of Kaladesh when it came out, and this is set on the world of Kaladesh. Most likely that's not the case. But anyways, Sacred Foundry, set on Kaladesh. This is your mountains plains land. So, the flavor text says, after the consulate's defeat, the forges were open to all. Now inventions pour forth from Girapur as freely as molten metal from the foundry. So it's pretty straightforward. It's talking about how the consulate got overthrown and everything was opened up to the populace of Kaladesh. So they didn't have the same restrictions. All inventions have to be turned over to the consulate and all this sort of thing. So that is good from a freedom perspective. The artwork definitely showcases an aspect of Kaladesh. You have the crazy, like, filigree swirling metalworks they're well known for. And you can see this massive, like, molten bucket that is tilting forwards, pouring a crazy amount of molten metal down into a pool. It definitely does make me wonder what is being created here. So the idea of it being a sacred foundry 100% works. Overall, I gotta say, I really like all of these lands. They're all great. I think it's weird that they chose, instead of just doing 5 secret layers with 2 Shocklands each, to do 5 secret layers with 3 Shocklands each and doubling down on each of the allied colored Shocklands. But I guess they just figured let's be real. It's most likely just so they can sell them for the price they want to sell them at, right? They want to make sure there's enough cards in it to justify. And I don't think they've ever done a 2-card secret layer. If you want to get real technical and you don't count tokens, then the Bitter Blossom secret layer just had a Bitter Blossom and 4 tokens with it. But I consider the tokens as cards in a secret layer as well. So for me, there has been no secret layers with only 2 cards. Maybe they don't want to go that low, or maybe they just felt like people wouldn't buy it if they didn't include 3. So speaking of buying it, the price of each of these secret layers for each one is $30. If you want to buy them all together, then you can get all 5 of them together for $120. So it's almost like, based on their pricing structure, buy 4, get 1 free. And those prices are American prices, so that price will vary depending on where you are in the world. Now, that wraps up everything I have to say about these cards. Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. My top patrons scrolling by, and I'm going to leave a link to a brand new video that just got released today on my other channel. It's absolutely hilarious. I guarantee it will make you laugh. So go and check it out. You are going to love it, my friends. Thanks for being here. See you next time.